and are interested in learning more about what we're going to be talking about. Let me grab my notes so that I can at least have information here as I talk about it. Chief, if I just stand right over you here?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, the meeting is something that I was working with John Varela, the director of Valley Water, as we were in after the fires in Southern California. This thing not working? And so we started talking about what, with the concern that many of our members of the community were expressing regarding water resources. What if there was a fire? Where would water be had? And what about our fire hydrants? And so we thought, hey, we'll put together a meeting. We can talk about these concerns. And so John and I met several times over what it might look like. And so we got together with city manager. And so we're going to do quite a little presentation for you tonight. And I would just want to introduce a few folks who will be participating and then at the end also being available to answer questions. By the way, my name is Mark Turner. I'm the mayor of Morgan Hill, and I'm glad that you're all here. We appreciate you taking the time out tonight to participate. Christina Turner, our city manager, is here as well, and she'll be available at the end for questions. Chris Gioni, our assistant city manager, public services director, and overall go-to guy for about anything in the city. Chris Gioni there. We've got our Marcos Hernandez, our new fire chief, is here. And then, of course, our police chief, Shane Palsgrove, sitting here as well. We've also got from Valley Water, John Varela, who will be doing a presentation here shortly. And then also with him, Alexander Gordon, Assistant Officer, Emergency Safety and Security Division. That's quite a title. Appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. Again, part of the reason that we are gathered here tonight is we want to talk about, how we strengthen our community awareness around these issues when it comes to water resources, fire preparedness, and those types of things. So we want to discuss the current water and fire safety strategies, and some of those that we'll be presenting to you tonight. And then at the end, of course, if you have any questions, we can address those questions. And then also encouraging community participation. And so the fact that you're here is part of that, but we'll also be talking about preparedness strategies that you can implement as well. So part of the reason for why is increasing wildfire risk due to climate change that we know is something that's happening, and so we're working on how do we prepare for that. A lot of this has to do, again, with residents preparing their homes and being able to sort of harden their landscapes and that sort of thing. So in the event of a fire, there's more to be done in order to protect your homes. Drought conditions and water conservation urgency, which is part of what Valley Water will be talking about, and then also community's role in preparing. And that's, again, it's homeowners, it's residents who are doing their part in order to prepare their homes. And so I'm going to give you just a brief meeting overview. Valley Water will be talking about water resources and drought conditions. Morgan Hill will be talking, the city will be talking about municipal water systems. Our fire chief will be talking about fire preparedness, fire hazard safety zones, and water resources for fighting fires. And then our police chief will be talking about emergency notification systems and evacuations. In the event of an evacuation, it is our police department that engages and gets that all started. So with that, I am going to now introduce our Valley Water representative of District 1, ladies and gentlemen, John Varela.
Good afternoon. Thank you for attending tonight. Appreciate that. By the way, my colleague Richard Santos, District 3, is in the room tonight. He is also a retired San Jose City firefighter. So, welcome, Mr. Santos. So, we want to talk about water. That's what we manage, that's what we control. And it's always good to talk about water when we have water to talk about. So, as you know, for the last few years, we've gone through droughts. And Valley Water operates under the conditions that we are always in a drought. We always are preparing for the next corner. We are speaking about water conservation. Now, each and every one of us has to put that in our memory bank. Water is finite. Currently, we have water, and we have plenty of it. All our above ground storage is almost at capacity. Our below ground, which is our aquifer, is almost at capacity. I say almost because it's never quite full. So we're about 70 to 80% full. All the dams in the state of California currently are at or above capacity, which is amazing when you think about that. And if you're not aware of this, Valley Water imports approximately 48% of its water from the Central Valley. So, and there's a cost for that because we have to transfer it up to, it's piped up to San Luis Reservoir, it's piped down into our valley and into our various aquifers in our groundwater and to our water treatment facilities in the northern part of the county in San Jose, which there are 3. We have 3 water treatment facilities and 1 water purification facility. We don't have any of that in where we are here in Morgan Hill. By the way, this is District 1, which is what I represent, and it's from the eastern foothills of San Jose south to Gilroy. I have all the open space, I have all the existing area, once called the Valley of Heart's Delight, which is agriculture. So it's just, I did that for my good friend, Mr. Rocky Garcia. So just to give you an idea that right now we are in good shape for water. So perhaps in reference to our community preparedness and resiliency, maybe Alex, you'd like to touch a little bit on that.
Sure. So, hi again, Alexander Gordon, Valley Water Assistant Officer. So when it comes to water supply at the wholesale level, Valley Water, we are, conserving. We went through a drought not too long ago during the pandemic. We have below, groundwater resources, which primarily support this area here. We also have above ground water resources, the reservoirs, surface water, and this water supply is used in different ways to support firefighting efforts. Now, I think we're going to talk more about that, but the reason why we're here is because we have an ongoing partnership, not only with the city of Morgan Hill for a lot of different reasons, but with the fire agencies in South County, because we have common interests, right? We have a support function when it comes to the first responders' needs for water supply, and we have different ways to provide that. So I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that further into the presentation, but I really thank you for putting this together and inviting us so that we can speak on this.
Thank you. And so let's talk about the community's role, our role, your role. We have a program, it's called the Water Rebate Program. This is a wonderful program. We invest several $1 million a year into this program. If you have a large lawn that consumes a tremendous amount of water and you're using spray irrigation versus drip irrigation, we have a plan for that. For every residence that's going through a change into less dependence on high water volumes, we have for homeowners up to $3,000 rebate. If you're a business or if you're an industry, from $50,000 to $100,000 rebate to change out your water landscaping to depend less on that and put in more turf that is less dependent on high water rates. And so this is something that we're doing. We encourage everybody to participate in this. If you're considering removing your water consuming irrigation systems that you have and plants, let's talk about that. And this is a program that we make available to you, the public, and we hope you exercise your ability to take advantage of that. So that's what I consider the community's role in wanting to save water, conserve water, and in drought conditions, we all want to participate in that. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, John. I think at this point in time, we're going to turn over to Chris Gioni.
Thank you, Mayor. So Chris Gioni, my role as Public Services Director, I know probably most of the people in the room, whether it's preparing to build a tank up there on...
Can you use the mic, please?
Oh, yeah. See, I'm not...
It wasn't working earlier, that's why.
Check.
The other one was working.
Well, one of my roles is being in charge of the recreation facilities, which I'm in trouble for tonight because our microphones aren't working. But, I'm just going to yell because I think it's going in and out. So, if I talk this loud, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, I will project. So in my role as Public Service Director, I oversee a lot of the functions, public works, those sort of things. I know many of you from many meetings, in whether it's prepping to build a tank up on the hillside up there that we're constructing right now, whether it was our transportation master plan update, or working on with our engineering group on projects you might have, a developer might have in the community. So I think I know many of you. With me tonight is James Sylvain. James oversees our water utility, the operations of our water utility. So when we get the tough questions at the end, James will be answering those. But with that said, I think the first part of the presentation we're talking about is fire hydrants. So we have fire hydrants located through the city of Morgan Hill, including all the high fire severity zones within the city limits. Obviously, outside the city limits or outside our water service area, you're not gonna see hydrants typically in a lot of those areas because they're not connected to the city water system in those rural areas. So we do have hydrants. All of our hydrants, as Mr. Varela noted, we rely on the water in the ground. We pull all of the water for the City of Morgan Hills water system out of the ground and we pump it up to tanks. We use booster pumps and tanks to pump it up to those tanks and use pressure from the tanks, from gravity, or from the booster stations to push water to those fire hydrants. So we do not rely on surface water for those fire hydrants at all. It's all comes from the groundwater. The city's water system is backed up by a system of generators which support our wells and our boosters. So the water system will continue running during power outages and even extended power outages. So if there's a power outage, the fire hydrants will continue to work. And next slide. So when a new development is constructed, there are fire flow requirements for those fire hydrants. Those fire flow requirements have changed through time. So some of the older developments have lower flows. That's pretty standard across our state. And I'll talk to you about what we're kind of doing with that as we move forward. But our city water system and fire hydrants in general, the network has been designed to provide flow to extinguish structure fires, not to combat wildfires. So if anyone thinks there's gonna be 50 trucks that come up and connect to the hydrants and they'll all be able to use that water at once, municipal water systems don't work that way. Not our system, not anybody's system. So we rely on a lot more than that, which Chief Hernandez is going to talk about. But our hydrant system is checked regularly for flow, and we do that normally on a regular basis. Now, some of the things we are doing to improve the water system's capacity when it comes to fire protection, you guys who live on the east side of town see one of them every day. We're building a new water storage reservoir on East Dunn Avenue that's going to hold nearly 1 million gallons of water. That reservoir is currently under construction. We probably have another 1.5 years before it's completed. However, after that construction is completed, it doesn't complete the fire protection project that has to do with that tank. Because after the tank is completed, another booster station will be built next to it, and a pipeline will run directly from that tank up to the Holiday Lake tanks, up in Holiday Lake Estates, which will provide redundancy and increased flow to those tanks from the new tank. So realistically, this project's gonna be a 5-year project or 4-year project where we have another 1.5 years to finish this, and then probably 1.5 years to completion of the next project, with some bidding and time in between. On the west side of town, we are currently designing the upsizing of the Glen Air tank, which is one of the tanks on the west side of town in the high fire severity zone over there out on Yagas. So that we anticipate going out to bid later this year or early next year, and construction will be 1.5 years or so. So that increased facility will come online in another couple of years as well. And we continue to look at other projects. The Woodland Reservoir will also be upsized in the coming years. And then our water system master plan identifies a key project as rehabilitating our water lines. And a lot of you will say that's just when they fail, but it will also, we evaluate when we replace any water line, the sizing. So one of the things that will happen is those lines will be upsized when our water lines are replaced. So we're doing that as we go. And I think that concludes my portion, and I will pass it over to Chief Hernandez.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Marcus Hernandez. I'm the new Morgan Hill Fire Chief. First thing I want to talk to you about is basically the gold standard in wildfire prevention. That's the Ready, Set, Go website. As the video you saw played, there's various information you can learn how to prepare, prevent, and what to do post-wildfire. So what is Ready, Set, Go? That means getting ready for the wildfire. I'm gonna tell you right now, we're not gonna respond our way out of the wildfire crisis. There's a new verbiage, a new term called community wildfire preparedness and mitigation. Community includes you, includes the fire department, includes everybody in this room. We all have to work together to work through this issue. At the end, I'll talk about how we utilize water when we fight wildfires. But I want to show you some of the things you can visit some resources to prepare for wildfire, because they are coming. So we'll go to the next slide. So you can go to this website, morereadyforwildfire.org. You can find out about defensible space. You can find out about home hardening, how to make your home more resilient to wildfire. In case you have to do new construction, information on that. Very interactive website. On our city fire page, you should have still a link to readyforwildfire.org. For everyone, you can get an action plan for your family, an evacuation plan. There's all sorts of tips and tricks to know how to be ready for these wildfires and create what's called resiliency. And this defensible space, I just showed a quick diagram. You'll be able to see it, but basically you want to go all the way to your property line and create a defensible space. If you have 100 feet, not too common in Holiday Lakes, you want to go just to your property line. So we have a new zone. It used to be just 2 zones. There's a new one you might hear called Zone 0. That's within 0 to 5 feet of your structure. You want to have nothing combustible in that area, because a lot of the large catastrophic wildfires aren't so much a majority of the houses. When it's structure to structure combustion, that's one thing. But as a wildfire comes through, what they're finding a lot is it's the embers that start the fire. The fire doesn't start from the direct flame impingement. It's the embers that sit there and fester, and when the firefighters go through or the residents have left, they start large fires and creep up through the walls. So we'll go to the next slide. So these are our new maps. So these are at the next city council meeting. These are the fire hazard severity zone maps. They were last updated in the mid to late 2000s to let you know about fire hazard. So they're different than what your insurance companies utilize. Insurance companies utilize risk. That's something that could be mitigated. When you remove your vegetation, you build a stronger home, create clearance, that's risk. This is hazard. So these are saying basically, as you can see where it goes, in the flats of the city where there's less combustible and what's called topography doesn't lend itself to easy fire propagation, there's not any fire hazard severity zones. On the west and east of the city where it's more mountainous and we get a little more steeper, more hilly, that's where you have the greater fire hazard threat. So things, especially within the city, the very high fire hazard severity zone you gotta think about, you're gonna have defensible space requirements. If you sell your real estate, there's gonna be a disclosure for the new person purchasing. If you're doing any new construction in these areas, there's additional requirements as far as access, setbacks, and then in the building code, you're gonna build with more resilient structural members to help it resist combustion, and that's in the building code chapter 7A. We'll go to the next one. If you have any questions, you can go to fire.ca.gov. There's a lot of videos, a lot of information on what the fire hazard severity zones mean and what they do. We also stood up a web page on the city fire department website as well. There's interactive maps. I know we brought out some still ones where you can't tell what the streets are that affect you. There'll be an interactive map where you can zoom in right on your street, type your address, and figure out what zone you're in. Go to the next one. Another thing too, we talk about community wildfire preparedness and mitigation. Here's another thing right here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this linked on our city fire department website. The cool thing here that's to show at the top, and we'll go into it, is active incident web pages. If a large fire is going on either around this area or around the area where someone you love is, you can find information on that fire. These are authoritative, automated updates that include the size of the fire, the resources assigned, the Alert California cameras, even after we get it from the local OEMs, the law enforcement, evacuation routes, damaged structures, and we're gonna show another cool thing is a 3D map. This one's not the coolest, it was a fire on the flat land, so it's not the most dynamic, but a lot of authoritative, automated information to figure out what's going on with fires that are either may impact you. If it's really impacting you, we're hoping you're gone already, you left, you evacuated, or people you care about. This should pull up that 3D map. Again, this is all on the homepage of fire.ca.gov. Anybody remember 2020? Back when we have, at the time it was the 3rd largest fire here. Quickly. What's that? Yes. Yes. So at that time, this website, that's that 3D map I'm messing around with. Our website had over 1 billion hits, and it crashed. So what we did is, besides fixing our website to handle all that traffic when these large emergencies come, because again, people are coming to us for the information. We also figured out what people were going to. We found out everybody wanted to go to the incident page to figure out what's going on and what affects them. It used to be 9 to 12 button clicks to get to that. We gave the people what they want, served the citizens, make sure they had the information they need. It's now on our landing page at fire.ca.gov. We'll go to the next one. Another one just announced by the governor in recent weeks. You have questions about fire hazard severity zones, home hardening, and you don't want to click through pages? The bottom right side, Ask Cal Fire. I'm going to ask about home hardening in this video, so we'll see what it gives me. I think it's going to give me some links to that information in case I can't find it on readyforwildfire.org. So I just asked it about home hardening. Tells me about it and gives me a link on what to click to learn more about home hardening to help you be prepared. And that's the website it took me to. Again, you don't want to search, Ask Cal Fire. And we'll go to the next page, and we're going to link all this. Another one for the area for your awareness is Alert California. It helps us maintain situational awareness, not just for the firefighters, but for the communities we serve. Various sponsors, including PG&E, various electric companies, again, us, but you can see what's going on in the area. Back in mid-2023, Time Magazine awarded UC San Diego and Cal Fire with one of the greatest inventions of 2023. That's when we integrated artificial intelligence into this already vital camera network. So as you can see, an area you're concerned with or where your loved ones are, you can click here, pull up a camera. This is all through Alert California, the UC San Diego website, so you can stay informed on threats to you or other communities. Go to the next one. And here's another new one. I showed you those automated updates, the fire perimeters, the maps. This is one that hits close to home. Earth Fire Alliance's FireSat. Again, it's all about keeping firefighters informed and the communities we serve informed. Out of Mountain View, back in mid-March, we launched our first satellite. That's going to give us that situational awareness, so the firefighters know how close the fire is to communities, so communities know how close the fire is. It was launched on a SpaceX rocket from Muon Space, the ones that built it. They're out of Mountain View, California. So this is some of the team that we were there with when it launched. This is a Fire-First satellite constellation that aims to have 50 low Earth orbit satellites to give you greater resolution, fidelity, and 20-minute updates on any fires in the area. So you can tell, we can tell, and you can tell if they're going to become a threat. We'll go, I think, my last one. And then water resources for firefighting. Like Chris mentioned, when we fight wildfires, they're large and fast moving. We don't want to be anchored to a hydrant. We fill up from hydrants and go. That's for the fire engines. Our helicopters, plenty of bodies of water in this area to pull up that water to refill. 1,000-gallon tank, we fill it to 700 gallons. We got the Firehawk about 2 years ago out of the Los Gatos area, our Alma Helitack base and fire station. Additionally, south of us, we have another Firehawk, rotary wing helicopter, and tankers out of Hollister. Tankers are retardant, the rotary wing helicopters are water. Those never need hydrants or ground sources for that, except for at their bases to fill up, mix that retardant. Again, our helicopters fill up out of bodies of water, plenty of them around here, and that hasn't been an impact. But we are, just to drive home the need for the community, which is both the first responders and the residents to work together to try to mitigate the effects of wildfire. Again, we're not going to respond our way out of this. We'll do our part, and we need everybody else in the communities to also try to do their part as much as they can. I think that's my last.
Yes.
Very good. Chief Fausto.
All right, Jennifer Ponce is our Office of Emergency Services Coordinator. She's going to kick us off regarding our emergency notification systems.
I also like to stand up when I speak. I believe that I know most of you as well. I'm the Emergency Services Coordinator for the City of Morgan Hill. It's nice to see all of you. Thank you for being here. And I wanted to just take a minute and talk to you about what emergency notification systems we have and how you can make sure that you're getting those notifications. I am gonna stay after, so if any of this is a little intimidating or the technology is of concern to you, you can come up to me afterwards and I'll make sure that you get registered. So there's a couple things that happen when we need to notify our public. There's impending events like the fire that Chief referenced, the SCU Lightning Complex fire. We knew that was a threat, right? We knew that that potentially was coming our way, so we had time to notify the public and to think through those notifications. Unfortunately, there's events that happen much quicker and there isn't as much time to build up. So we want you to be aware of something we have called Alert SCC. It is the same notification system used throughout the county, so it's not unique to Morgan Hill. Here's the clincher. You have to register to receive these messages, okay? I do have the website listed up there, and that's where I'm willing to help you. But if you go to that website, there's a big red button, and it says register here. And you click it, and you can pick to get notifications in Morgan Hill. If you have loved ones in other cities within our county, you can register for those cities as well. So what does that system do? That system will ring your cell phone, or it will send you a text, or it will send you an email. And it only goes to one of those systems. And I'm noticing with the data that we've sent in the past that it's primarily hitting our texting capabilities first. So for example, Bernie, if you get a text, you're not gonna be burdened also by a phone call and an email. It's just gonna go to your text. Please know, unfortunately, with texting, there's limitations to characters. So our message may say that we have an evacuation in place. Go to this for further information or call this number for further information. How many of you received messages from the city of Morgan Hill during those fires that you can recall? Okay. Those of you that live up in that area, if you did not get a message, that is concerning to me. And I want to make sure that you register, okay? We have other capabilities. You'll see some fancy names I have up there. WIA is one of them. And this capability notifies, it comes from cell towers. Let's say we want to notify your neighborhood of an evacuation for a wildland fire. Even people driving through those neighborhoods that are using cell phones will get that alert. We did use that through the fires also. And there's also a system called iPause that you may be familiar on the bottom of your television that will instruct you emergency alerts on the local AM radio station, 740 AM alerts. And then there's something called a NOAA weather radio that those alerts would go on. So I won't take up any more of your time. I would like to encourage you to pay very much attention to the city's, we call it a 411 weekly email that goes out every week. We use that quite a bit during emergencies to push information out to you, and we find it to be very effective. And again, I'm going to be here to help you with any of that afterwards.
Is it possible to ask a question that might be of general interest right now?
It is to me.
Because what we had were the warnings, we were on Holiday Drive, next to a fire hydrant, by the way. I don't know if it's a city fire hydrant, which was used to keep my house from burning. When we got the alerts, there were different messages coming out, maybe from different agencies.
There were two agencies. You had CAL FIRE / Morgan Hill Fire, and then you had the city of Morgan Hill.
And it seemed to be warning, and then you must evacuate. And the only thing that convinced my husband was the guy banging on the door.
Sure.
From, I think, the city police.
Probably. That
It
is.
was good. I mean, it's all very good. I'm just saying, what I want to try to do in the future, because we're in the middle of it, it's happening. And spouses and kids or whatever are all getting their messages. What is the best way?
I'll tell you what. Evacuate early. The sooner you can get out, the better off you are. Okay, roadways are going to be crowded and clogged, and it's a lot easier to get out and then find out that you can go back home. So if you have any doubt, please evacuate. And always do that first and be ready to go. Have what you need to get out, and you can always go back home. That's my advice. Sometimes messages do get confusing and a little scary when emergencies are going on, but always get out the soonest that you can. Thanks for that question.
Jennifer Ponce, the Office of Emergency Services Coordinator, is stationed out of the police department, so she works hand in hand with the police department during these evacuations. And the police department always sends a liaison, a high-ranking police officer, to the command post, and they work hand in hand with fire during these large fires. And we rely on fire's expertise on when we should evacuate. When the decision's made to evacuate, then we will send police officers through the neighborhoods using their long-range acoustic device speakers on their cars, notifying the neighborhood of the evacuation being imminent. They will also go door to door if they have time to do so, and we'll also post it on our social media. And the last fire, San Jose Police Department took me up in their helicopter, and we were able to see how close the fire was. At that point in time, is about 10 miles away, but due to the winds and the embers traveling at a couple miles due to the wind, we decided that we were going to evacuate due to the one way in, one way out. So when we are doing evacuations, we're going to utilize Thomas Grade and East Dunn Avenue. We're going to make sure that we always have a road open for fire and EMS and PD to go up and respond to the fire, and use the other lanes or roads to evacuate. Once we evacuate the area, we're going to close it down and not allow anybody back up for the obvious reasons of ensuring property is safe and we don't have looting or burglaries in the neighborhood. And we'll also have active patrols, and that's when we'll start using our volunteers and CERT members to be extra eyes out in the community until we're able to repopulate the area.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Chief. I think at that point in time, what we'd like to do now is open it up for any questions that you might have. It was very kind of a brief presentation here, but we'd like to answer any questions that you might have. Are there any other questions?
I'm just gonna have Chris announce some resources.
Oh, yes.
And then the library's
Yep.
gonna be doing a seminar.
Chris, go ahead.
Well, I think the resources you see on screen, Chief Hernandez went through most of those, and Chief Palsgrove and Jennifer talked about her role with community emergency response. Well, maybe you didn't, but if you're interested in supporting in a volunteer level, Jennifer also oversees our community emergency response team, and we're always interested in more volunteers supporting that. And then, as Christina just mentioned, the library has an emergency preparedness resource fair scheduled for June 7th from 10 a.m. to noon, which will have the city and our teammates from fire, police department, as well as representatives from the county, Catholic Charities, and the county health department and county parks department that will be there. So that would also be a great event to attend. And then just a reminder, what you can do is, as Chief Hernandez said, is prepare your home for fire season, stay informed, and sign up for alerts, as Jennifer mentioned, and coordinate and participate in any activities that are put out there, drills, and as Director Varela noted, conserve water daily. So I think that was all the announcements.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Questions? I know somebody had their hand up over here. Yes. No, please go ahead. Yep.
So, there are a lot of regulations and enforcements that the city and the police department and the fire department actually have enforcement plans for. And I've listened to the fire department and some other people about how homeowners should harden their properties in order to reduce the probability of fire and fire spreading. But the question I have is, what plans do the city and the fire department have to enforce some of these standards? because I drive by my development, and I may take care of my house, but I may see some neighbors up there that are doing a lot less. And as a result, whatever I did is very ineffective. So my question is there any enforcement plans to encourage those that are less prone to deal with their property? Are there any enforcement plans to encourage their participation?
Yes, there is. I'm gonna guess it's not this group, but has anyone ever got a letter from the fire marshal's office saying you have the wrong vegetation or you need to cut your vegetation? Probably not in this room. Every year we go around, check every property in the fire hazard severity zones for both their clearances as well as, you know, the city of Morgan Hill has always been one of the leaders in fire prevention. We even take it the next step and try to, and we notify homeowners of hazardous vegetation types near their structures. Examples of this are cypress trees, junipers, thuja, things like that. Hundreds of those letters tend to go out every year, as well as we work with county weed abatement who send out letters. After 3 notices, it gets referred to them. Code enforcement department's great. They help enforce that. What we hope to get most of it is just informing the homeowner of the hazard, informing them they're not in compliance. That's what gets a majority of it. There are some that then don't comply that we relay to county weed abatement, to code enforcement. We always strive for 100%, but it is difficult to get 100%. But every year we go around right before peak season and let the homeowners know about the hazards and try to, I know you're all doing your great job because that's why you're here, but we try to get your neighbors to be educated and comply with those requirements.
Chief, I have a question. Does CAL FIRE actually go around and look for the vegetation issues?
The City of Morgan Hill Fire Department does within the city. CAL FIRE does within the state responsibility area.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as far as the weed abatement goes, the city of Morgan Hill's on a contract with the county, correct?
Yes.
And the city of Morgan Hill is currently second to last to be inspected. It starts up in Milpitas on March 1st. And then it does, April 1st is Los Gatos, Monte Sereno, Santa Clara. April 30th is Cupertino, Los Altos Hills. May 1st is Morgan Hill. And I just spoke to the county weed abatement office, and they have not even started yet in the city of Morgan Hill. And they don't plan on being here for another couple of weeks. Those are some issues that, I mean, we all do our part, but the city needs to do their part. And I understand it's a county agency, but they're on contract with the city. So if they're not fulfilling their contract, something needs to be done about that.
Let me add some years though. You might always want to get it done early, but we're still getting rain later in the year, and if they inspect too early, it might grow. Now that's somewhat a misnomer. Yeah.
But here's the issue, it's just like this gentleman said. We do our part. There's residents that are gonna cut their weeds, and when they regrow, they're gonna cut them again. And then there's residents that don't do anything. And it doesn't matter when you inspect those people, because they're not going to do anything. And if you allow that inspection to start taking place a month late, 2 months late, then by the time it goes through the entire inspection process, the referral, the letter, the fines that have to go through city council, you're talking October, November before it's resolved. And we've gone through an entire fire season without those weeds being cut.
I see your point. We can talk with, who's running code enforcement? Does
No, we do
actual-
that in public services.
Okay.
So one of the, to Chief Hernandez's point, which doesn't directly relate, many years ago, we had an earlier date. We had an earlier date, and we had the exact issue that was talked about with regrowth, so we moved it to a later date. That was well before my time, so it's been over 20 years since it was an earlier date. But I think to your point, it's not necessarily the date, it's when the county gets the inspections completed. Now, our process, we did a few years ago, shorten this process. The city council does not have to approve anything before the abatement happens. So once the inspection it's failed their inspection, and there's weeds there, The county can schedule the abatement right away, and then, down the road, the council's not even involved, but they can protest the charges, but they can conduct that abatement right away. So the target abatement is gonna happen in June. That's the target, not October. So, and we have spoken with the county on that, and to your point, we are trying to work with the county to have them proactively begin the inspections on our inspection date. But with all the cities relying on it, it doesn't always work. I will say, you'll see most of the cities that are more rural in nature, like Los Gatos, cities like that, they are the April 30th, the May 1st, like us in that area. And a lot of the more urbanized cities are earlier on the schedule. But I totally understand your point, and it's something we can definitely continue to work on to try and make sure that.
Right, because one thing you need to keep in mind is 20 years ago, when you had the earlier date, we didn't have these high severity fire maps.
Right.
It wasn't affecting our insurance.
Well-
Today, we have all those maps, and Morgan Hill is probably the largest, highest severity fire area in the entire county. We
Yeah.
have the most highest severity fire danger right here.
And we will, the inspections from the county, which should be starting in the next week, will all be in the high fire severity zones first.
As it should be. Thank you.
If I can, my name is Rocky Garcia. My wife and I have been here for 50 years. We're home builders and developers. We just got through cutting our big project out at Hill and Barrett, so we did that. We have given a well on East Main to the city, so where they helped out on that in the well. The real issue, if I could go up to the map that I would like to show you, they put a project that we did about 35 years ago at the end of Llagas Valley. Christina, can you put the map up of the city that had the high fire? And I guess the part that has me the most, there it was. So on the left side of the map, you'll see that high fire, and that's the Glen Air area, which we did with a partner, Roger Birch. And we developed that area. It's all developed. We happen to have 4 lots left, but you put us in a high fire, high severity area when we already have, you're gonna upgrade the storage system that we started and did a long time ago. I agree with that. But we have fire hydrants, et cetera. And the one that has me the most about, I wanna try and get that changed. And I'm asking you guys to help me do that. But if you look at how that U-shaped is, you see down to the kind of left of it, it looks like there's a little something there. And if you know what that is, because I've lived here for 50 years just down the road, that's called a lake. Uvis Lake. So I mean, literally when you think about it, that particular area has more chance of putting out a fire than probably any other place. I know that it's hillside, but in our particular case, we have 4 lots up there, and they're 100%, each one of them is 100% surrounded by existing houses. I just think from a financial standpoint, and that's literally what I'm talking about, putting existing properties like that in a high fire cost us a lot of money. And I will give you one other sidelight. So we have a property downtown, and all of downtown except for one piece of property is in what we call the flood zone. Our property is out of the flood zone because we took it to what's called FEMA and we worked it to get it out. I think the city needs to help us citizens and get out of the high fire hazard area. It's just a designation. It's truly a designation. Everybody I've talked to, and I talked with CAL FIRE this morning, of why. They didn't have a specific reason of why that's a high fire, severe high fire.
Before you answer, just one more thing on what Rocky's talking about. The highest fire, if you take those maps and you overlay them with PG high tension line maps, you will see exactly why that's a high fire severity zone.
So
I did that last year, and I talked to all the way up to the deputy chief that's in charge of the maps at CAL FIRE, and nobody could answer that. And that is not a factor. They say it's not a factor. They don't address that when they're developing these maps. The high tension lines, it's not a factor. They're looking at wind, they're looking
topography, fuels, weather,
But the
and then
thing they're not
Embercast.
looking at is they're not looking at PG&E high tension lines. And if you zoom out, very interesting, you should do it sometime, zoom out, and you'll see Catalina Island. And surrounded by water, and there's one high severity fire area on Catalina Island, right where the high tension line is. And on the east side of Morgan Hill is all high tension lines. I'm sorry.
I'll have to check that out.
The west side
Got it.
is all high tension lines.
So one thing to remember on this is it's hazard, not risk. So risk can be mitigated. So for instance, on that side again, it's CAL FIRE was tasked by legislature to come up with a standard process to create the fire hazard severity zones. I myself found myself in a very high fire hazard severity zone once I had my new maps come out. It's a standardized process, including, and we have that website, you can check it out, but the topography, the fuels, the weather in the area, what's new is Embercast, winds, to come up with a standard methodology to implement throughout the state. So this is what the models showed. They'll be reevaluated in the future, but for now, these are the maps. And again, they are hazard maps. So go.
Which, if I'm not interrupting,
Yeah.
I
No, all
apologize
good, all
for
good.
that. But the line you've got going straight through, where one is red and the other is yellow,
Yeah.
I believe that we built on both sides of that as part of this big subdivision. It's called Castle because Tom Castle was the owner, ex-mayor of good old Morgan Hill. But my point is that it's on one side, the right side, or the east side of that street is yellow and the other side is red. I mean, to me, that area, yes, it's not high.
Yeah.
It should be severe. I don't have a problem with that, but not all the way up. It causes fire insurance issues, big time.
Understood. And again, I'm someone who had the same, I got in the worst zone. But insurance have their own proprietary maps. They're not relying solely on these hazard maps. They use a lot of risk maps. So like, think about the topography, no matter what's built there, even if you asphalt it, if you don't touch it, eventually you're gonna get weeds through it. So it's thinking about what would happen if you didn't do any mitigation. Insurance, sometimes your insurance adjuster will say it's because of these maps. We work closely with the various insurance boards at the state level. They have their own proprietary risk maps. These might play a factor, but these are not the one and only maps. And again, so the reason you're in a hazard there, it's a standard methodology, but generally there's better chance for vegetation growing, different type of vegetation. The topography is not flat, so it's unfortunately, these are the maps. They aren't changing them until they reevaluate it. Maybe the science will change in the future and change, I'm sure, almost certain it'll change the zones to whether we get more or less. But it's a standardized methodology that legislature tasked CAL FIRE with carrying out. This is what they came out with for this round of maps.
It was quite interesting. I just put one last little thing in there. If you can point out where the city hall is and how it kind of went around, the yellow hazard area went around City Hall.
There's a lot of hot stuff happening at City Hall already, so we get that. Bernie's got a question there.
Yes.
Okay, about a month ago, my son called me, we lived together. He said, "Dad, go to the front window." He said, "There's 6 fire trucks out front. The neighbor next door had a chimney fire. The flames were shooting 5 feet above the chimney itself. Very, very, very dangerous." I thought to myself, one of the most valuable things I have in my life is my home. And those of you who have seen it, it's a rather unique home.
You like the bar.
And anyway, they did come out, they got the fire out, they put the hose down the chimney and got it out. I talked to one of the firemen and he said when he put his hand against the bricks of the outside of the fire chimney, they were red hot, which indicates that thing was burning for quite a while. It has a drop chute below it, 4 feet by 4 feet by 8 feet deep. It was totally filled with ash from years of not being cleaned. And they were given a warning letter, I believe, to get it cleaned out. Anyway, fire department said, no, they went out and they cleaned it for them. I hope you sent them a nice bill.
Yeah, whatever.
It's scary because you don't know until it's in your face. And
Absolutely.
You know, I was in the insurance business. I saw many house fires over the years, 42 years, 32 years of business. It's an awful sight, an awful feeling.
No, absolutely. Anytime there's a threat to your home or you lose your home, that's a
I've
sense of
had to
security.
personally clean a lot across the street out of my money because it's an unoccupied piece of land, not buildable. It's too close to the lake, they won't allow them to build on it. I have to have a weed whacker guy go out there and clean it, bring the weeds down. I had a guy take the rest of the tree down that had fallen. They were doing nothing about it except letting it go to follow them, and it would have been very dangerous. So I guess each homeowner has to look at his neighbors and see what's going on, and you don't want to be the reporter, but somehow maybe notify a serious condition to the department.
It's unfortunate, and we wish all homeowners were like you, who care this much about preventing disaster, preventing wildfires. It's unfortunate that you had to do that, but it is saying something that you did do that to not just protect your home, but to give a little bit of better community protection.
Yeah, thank you.
Hand up here, and then we'll come over here.
Yeah, I have a clarification I need regarding different agencies. I'm stuck on different agencies. So I live on Holiday Drive on the city side, across the yellow line in the middle of the road, east, north, it's northeast. Then your county. We're all one homeowners association, but you have all these different agencies. So to the point about who's responsible to mitigate from enemy's property that's coming across them, and the neighbors around it, my husband, an extra neighbor, and another one in the right district, live in the trees and do things to try to mitigate, because we don't want ours to be done. People don't even live here, and they have to build on it, and this and that. So when he was talking about who's going to be responsible for the, some accountability factor, where do we get that? Our neighborhood association, of which John is a board member, does a lot, but you can't always enforce it by homeowners associations, right? And so, and who is it that's going to come out and knock on my door to say, hey, your tree is dead, you gotta cut, like, I wish we cut 40 trees off my house, thanks to the work that you guys have done around here over 25 more years, but it's one of these things where you want to be neighborly about it, you want to do what you can, but there are boundaries. And I'm not clear, and this is the group to ask, I think, about who holds others accountable for their property or not.
So if it's in an area where either government code or public resources code allowed the fire department to enforce, they'll notify them, they'll work with their code enforcement agencies. That's with built environment. If it's a vacant lot, that's for code enforcement. But if it's the built environment, we have those regulations we talk about, and it's either gonna be covered by, if you're in the county, probably Public Resources Code 4291. Yeah, so they're gonna be Public Resources Code 4291, which is the sister to Government Code 51182, which is all those defensible space clearances. We'll give them the notification, but like you mentioned, there's those boundaries. There's only so much we can do. We can't enter someone's property. We can't on the fire department side. So we'll notice them. We'll refer it to the organizations that can do more, but again, unfortunately, there are boundaries that can become more difficult to get through. And like I said, although we strive for 100% compliance, it's something that we're always gonna be stuck striving for. And what we need is the communities, again, to get that much more involvement, to understand how much you care. HOAs though, they do have additional, they can go sometimes beyond, but depending on how they're set up, they can go beyond what public agencies can do. So it's something to look in there as well.
Yeah. Ma'am. Yep.
I was wondering, since the Senate bill that was passed, essentially you can look up your residence and look at the map that came out in April and see if you live in a high risk fire area. And it was my understanding that essentially that to create the 5-foot defensible space. That's really what I'm asking, because I understood it was, but it, of course it comes down to how is that going to be enforced. But as I understood the bill, it would be a requirement.
So the bill required the regulations to be required, so they're building those regulations. There's kind of gonna be the last update, they're still building the actual regulations. So you have the statute, which is the bill, and then the regulations. The statute is the destination, the regulations is how we get there. They're still building how we get there. For the built environment, that is what they're aiming to be immediate. 5-foot zone. For the brand new construction, the built environment. For those pre-existing, it's gonna be a phased approach is what the last update was gonna be. I gotta get a more recent update, but again, the statute called for you to refine the regulations, and the last update was they were gonna look at a phased approach for those pre-existing constructions, but within a matter of years, everybody compliant. We're gonna do the notices, when it's required to do that zone zero, that 0 to 5 feet. Again, we're hoping to gain maximum compliance, but just like with the 30-foot zone, the 100-foot zone, it's gonna be an effort on the public agency side as well as the community side.
So the enforcement will rest with the local community?
Yeah, so it'll be the fire department as we do our annual inspections. We'll start checking for that when we're allowed to, as well as again, just the normal county weed abatement things. But yeah, it'll be on the fire agency. That will just be something we add to our inspection. And as we build new construction, once it's required, they will require you to have that 0 to 5 foot zone 0 for any new construction in the areas where it's required.
But will it be more than just a letter if you don't comply? I mean,
It's gonna be the same where it can get referred to code enforcement and other agencies, but it'll be the same process. It'll just be a little more stringent. It will be added to essentially the checklist of things you have to do and what you'll be notified. So it's just an additional notification on that.
But there's no such thing as fines?
It can eventually go that way, but the same process. It's not a new mechanism for fining. It's you have to give per the required codes notices, and then we can refer it to an appropriate agency or department to start the fines when necessary.
The weed abatement program, people pay that every year, dozens and dozens of people, and it gets put on their property tax assessment for the next year after the fact. So if you're on the list and they have to abate your property, that gets charged to your property tax if they've come and abated your property for the weed abatement.
Nick?
Yeah, for those who don't know anything, a lot of you do. My name's Nick Arnett. I live here in Morgan Hill in a high severity area. And I have a lot of fire credentials, but one of them is a community wildfire mitigation specialist. And we've talked a lot about enforcement, and enforcement is absolutely a necessary and important part of being fire adapted communities. But the other piece of it, no community in this country has ever really become a strong fire adapted community just through enforcement. It's really, and I want to throw a thank you in here as I have at every other meeting that Valley Water has made happen with the city. It's bringing people together face to face and building partnerships. We've talked a lot about our neighbors, and yeah, we need to build those face to face neighbor relationships, because neighbors talking to neighbors about fire safety works way better than somebody in a uniform doing it across the country. But I also want to challenge not just the people in the front, but everybody in the room. Let's figure out how to fill the seats, because it just won't happen if we don't figure out how to bring people in here. A little Facebook interchange. I sort of jokingly wanted to thank somebody who said I was talking like a politician, because I don't think I'm a very good politician. I'm not very good at figuring out how to get people motivated and bring them together and so forth. But I do want to offer that challenge to everybody in the room. As we get more of our people and our institutions involved, that's what's really worked in places that have done this very effectively, like in Marin County is a great example, and there's places in Colorado and others who've really made this happen. So all due respect to enforcement, it's great, it's necessary, it's important, but it is just not the whole story by far.
Thank you, Nick. Sean had a question, and then we'll go on.
It's a good question. So I I'm in Holiday Lake Estates, as you know, and I can speak a lot about the topic of alerting, actually getting an alert to do something out to people through wireless emergency alerts or iPaws or all of that. The issue up in Holiday Lake Estates, there are actually several. One is that it's all dependent on PG&E. There's one cell phone tower for Holiday Lake Estates because we're on the eastern side of that hill. So that cell phone tower goes down. There are a number of ways it can go down. It can go down because it doesn't have power and the generator isn't there in time. It can go down because a communication link is severed. There's copper bonded T1s, the lines that go from a remote cabinet in Holiday Lake Estates over to that tower. It can go down because the remote cabinet doesn't have power. The long list of reasons that tower can go down. And then there are also, because it's only AT&T, a lot of people in Holiday Lake Estates subscribe to Verizon or T-Mobile, which are the other of their big three. And if you have Wi-Fi calling set up, then emergency alerts will not go through. So there's a wide variety of scenarios in which those messages are not going through. So I spent a lot of time, how do other places deal with this problem? So obviously we're not the only ones. And there are two other ways of dealing with this problem that I see in the state of California. One is the NOAA weather alert radios. And Marin County distributes those to all of the homeowners who want them. And the city of Santa Rosa distributes the weather alert radios to all the homeowners who want them. And then Butte and Shasta County have Alert FM, where the FM radio stations have been outfitted with satellite receivers to broadcast over a certain range and unused data spectrum in the FM channels to actually reach these Alert FM devices. So those are the two alternatives out there. PG&E, I just recently found out that PG&E is also giving these things out in certain high fire areas that are dependent upon a limited number of cell phones. So that's something to look. It's something that it really has to get done. We were talking to Valley Water about it. Public information out there on their website from us, but it'd be better for PG&E or the city or some government entity. They're not that expensive. They're $30 to $40 per radio, and you got about 1,000 residents, 1,000 homes up there, 1,100 homes. Jackson Oaks is a little less necessary because they have an exposure to the west where they can see the cell phone towers that are not themselves dependent upon things that would go down in a fire. But Holiday Lake Estates is not. It's really unique and unfortunate. So we do have to do something. I don't know if we as a board do it, just include it in the dues 1 year that you're going to get a radio and every new homeowner is going to get one of these radios, or I don't, one way or another. Yeah. It needs to get addressed because waiting for police to come through there, that whole east area that was evacuated in 2000 is almost 30 miles of roads. You're not going to drive around 30 miles of roads, and even if you do blast with an LRAD, they need to know exactly what to do. Is it evacuate? You can go a lot further. The most important thing is to evacuate. The second most important thing in fast onset fires is to take the minimum number of cars per household. There's a congestion on the road that actually gets people trapped throughout the whole road network. There's a lot of research on that too. So
yeah. Well, it might be worth something to talk about with your homeowners association. That is an option right there that you just mentioned.
Or where the city and PG&E distribute them through the city or whatever. So it's
right. I would start with your homeowners association and have that conversation, and we can. I know you've been talking with Valley Water. We can certainly have that ongoing conversation, but it's not a bad option to consider. Yeah.
So I live next door to Howard Wyberg Park on Villa Castillo, and I have a defensible space on my side of the property line. The city doesn't. The city has tall trees in the park that stretch over the boundary, okay, into my property. My question is, can I ask you, Mr. Mayor, or maybe Chief, can we have the city come out and cut the branches so that they're not overextending on my property and making it indefensible? I'm doing my part, but I think the city needs to do their part to help me on that property line.
Yeah, I think it's worth inspecting, and I think that would be Chris Gioni. Yeah.
I will say trees are very difficult because they have many positive values too, and just removing trees is not.
But I think you're talking about trimming versus removing.
Yeah. We'll take a look.
On the side that faces the park, it's beautiful, okay, but I'm just saying if they could cut the half or the side on my side, and it'll still be looking good on the side of the city.
And looking good is good, but we also need to make sure the trees are structurally sound, so if you remove all the branches from one side, they often will.
You know, these trees are pretty old. I think we can do some.
Certainly worth a look. Yeah.
Wouldn't hurt the tree.
Thank you for that. Yes.
my question is going to Jennifer and our police chief. When we identify, you send out the alert, how do you identify if someone needs help getting out of their home? You know, Bernie doesn't move very fast unless we're going to the bar. Unless we're going to the bar. Is there on those forms that you want to be registered, you know? Is there a form that says there's a box for the homeowner to check? I will need assistance. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm with a cane.
Currently we don't have any lists like that. We're transitioning to a new software program where people are going to be able to register for things such as that, as well as people that have disabilities that may wander away from home. They will be able to register with our police department and give us all the pertinent information. So I think that would be a resource that we'll have in the future. But currently, no, they would have to call themselves or flag us down.
Can I
Or
add?
have a plan in place for a neighbor to check on them or something like that.
We do offer a program that's called Map Your Neighborhood. It's community-based and through the Office of Emergency Services. And you have to have a neighborhood that's willing to get together and work together and get to know each other, and any challenges that may be in your home that can be pre-identified in the event of an evacuation. And it's really neighbors checking on neighbors, and we have signs that you put in your window that say okay or help or that type of thing. But this is neighbors working with neighbors. It does not notify law enforcement or fire. But I'd be happy to talk to you about that program.
Terrific. I would love to know
Yeah.
more about it.
Yeah, that's a good one to get out there. Yes. We'll
Well,
go here.
it's kind of a comment and a question. When Nick mentioned working together with all of us, one thing I noticed about these meetings, it's the same people who come, and we do what we can, we knock on our doors, we ask our neighbors, we tell them when the thing's gonna happen, when we know when it's gonna happen. But the how to communicate with the city that you have an event, which I knew was going to be happening and had a hard time finding out the details for this event tonight.
Oh.
And it started with me having put in my calendar when we were up in Jackson. Nick, I think you used to, Cal Fire and other people came up to Jackson and Holiday Lake Estates and Jackson folks together, did a Firewise thing, and there were dates and things that were coming up. Actually, you were there, you might have been one of the ones announcing it, because you were here listening. So I take notes and I write something down, and it's gonna happen in the city, and I wrote down, it was last week, okay, maybe I made a mistake, but I couldn't find it easily that it was tonight. I fished around the website, this and that, and then I even had to call today to verify this, and it said just that it was happening here on Monday on your calendar. I'm sorry, I love you guys, you're doing it great, but communication, you can't get people to come to something if it's a moving target about when and where. And I don't know how to help you with that. I'm just saying, somebody actively trying to find it, I had to call here and say, what time does it start?
Go answer.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. So, I think someone up here mentioned our weekly newsletter, so it's the 411. So that is like the one-stop shop that I always recommend to people to make sure you're subscribed
So
to
if
it.
you're looking up last week, how are you gonna see this week?
Right, so it's forward-looking, right? So, so Friday, we sent it out, and it comes out usually, 6 a.m. on Friday morning. It will have all upcoming events, and so it was included in there. And then in addition to that, social media, so Facebook and then Instagram.
I just wanna say, is there something we can do to help it communicate, to help the way you are deeply interested, make sure we have the right information, whether it's a passive activity. Because honestly, if I'm looking last Monday, I don't see the newsletter of what's happening this week.
And I think your point being, if you've gone to the website, the city website, is there an easy way?
Super easy, it should be all over the place right now as we're going into fire season. Every angle you can put publicly, that people can easily Google, that's what
Yep,
I'm doing.
I'll share that with our communications team. I appreciate that feedback.
Can the city put the people in the county on that mailing list?
They can, they have to opt in. Right, so they would just enter their email address and then they would routinely get it. And then we work very closely with the San Martin Neighborhood Alliance as well for events.
Yes.
Yeah, Richard Sanders, Vice Chair of Santa Cruz Valley Water District. Of course, I got invited by Director Varela. Of course, you have a great advocate there as the former mayor and district director. In fact, we were just at Aqua together, and he had the water resources director there, the department head, Carla Nunez. It's the first thing he talks about, what we do in this area about fire prevention and you name it. It sounds to me, listen to everybody here, this is my second meeting. It seems to me there's need to be a lot more serious review of policies and so on. What I'm hearing here is that years ago, when I brought my property in the Berryessa area, today, if there was a fire with this wing, it would go from Berryessa to San Luis Obispo. So if you're gonna get serious, the board of supervisors has to be educated, and their policies have to be changed. Morgan Hill and Gilroy should be talking to those supervisors, because there's some kind of disconnection. The gentleman was talking about getting notification and so on, and I know what he's saying. By the time you have the appeal process to your fire hazard and grass, it would be November and January, or the 4th of July passed by.
Right,
So it doesn't make sense. If it don't make sense, it's nonsense. And so I'm not being critical. I'm a former fire captain for 33 years. I've been through it.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna prevent it, you gotta start doing a strategy and planning now and get the people who are elected, be accountable and responsible. Mo Kendrick, who elects the fire marshal to this day, I knew his dad and him back 40 years ago. I used to get notices. So I was talking to myself, my neighbors. So I got my tractor and I have to cut to 36 feet. But he says, yeah, we'll get a notice in May. I said, May, the notice should have been in January, and in May you abate. So before July comes, you're safe. He said, but if that neighbor wants to appeal, again, we're talking January. It just don't make sense. And Rocky was talking about the overlap. Well, that's Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lura. You have Mr. Rivas. You need to get some legislation to find out who the hell running the state, the insurance companies or the people who have to pay the penalties.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. It just overlaps. And one area is severe and one's not. I can tell you this, if you don't want it, and I can tell you you don't want it, have an Open Hills fire,
Right.
Palisades, Paradise, and Coy. Director Varela and myself, we made sure when I first got to the water district, we didn't have no equipment. Now you have mutual agreements. John makes sure that's updated, along with Alex, that we can bring equipment and help you. But that's not gonna, just like the dam at Palisades, that wouldn't put the fire out.
Right.
Why was it below before the fire started? Why did the cities, like example here in Anderson, why did the county, before you could build, have roads, fire prevention, and all those things? So passing the buck doesn't do a bit good.
Right.
When you lose everything you own. So if
Right.
you're gonna mix the prevention, I'm not giving you a lecture. Y'all gotta get it serious and hold people accountable who's elected. Say, hey, we need the resources and let's plan now before the 4th of July.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
So, thank you, Director Santos. One thing on just the notification for the weed abatement program, once you are on the list, you stay on the list for 3 years and you have to show you abated your weeds 3 years in a row to get off the list. Those initial notices for abatement do go out early in January. The inspection occurs, and that can be for people that have been on the list before or new people that are added to the list. The inspection should occur in May and the abatement in June if they haven't abated, or earlier. So just wanted to say there is that early notification for people who have not abated their weeds in the past. They get that notification earlier. That's part of the process.
All I can tell you is that right now, I can take you up in my area. As far as you can see, it's 6 foot more right now of grass, dry. As we're talking about a severe hazard. Again, I'm repeating. Go on to the Palisades from here. There's gotta be, fire cuts and all these things way before the season begins. So, you gotta do what you wanna do. I don't wanna see anybody die who's on their own. Been there, done that, it don't make sense.
Right. Got it. Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions or comments?
Any chance to get a little more water at Lake so the choppers can get down and get some at Anderson?
Well, I think we talked earlier, and John can mention this, but
Okay, so, as you well know, you might be aware of it or not. Those of you that are new to this community, Anderson Dam is under a seismic retrofit mandated by the federal government, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the outlet, which is the tunnel that allows water to flow out into the Coyote Creek, is mandated by the state of California to retrofit the tunnel. The tunnel is almost done. It will be finalized and operational by 2026. The dam will be lowered within the next 2 to 3 years, mandated. So Anderson Dam is not a water source to be considered. We have 9 other reservoirs and dams in the city, in the county, in addition to our groundwater. We have plenty of water. We're not depending on Anderson for at least the next 10 years.
Thank you, John. I hope I'm alive.
You baited me.
and there's your answer to that question. Anyone else? If not, I'd like to thank.
Well, what can we do, and other than the obvious?
Tell your neighbors.
No.
Spread the word. Spread the word.
I send them texts, I give them physical printouts, I do everything, and by the way.
Fill the room.
The other communication thing, ironically, Jackson Oaks has organized Holiday and Jackson people to voluntarily do weed abatement.
Yeah.
Past your reservoir in your building, I don't know if you're supposed to have. The one that's on East Dunn, and you're pulling the new reservoir, but it's not actually gonna be functional for like 3 or 4 years. We're gonna personally do our own weed abatement.
Yeah.
On the same day, the city is holding their 10 to 12 fire information day on Saturday, June 7th. So there's a communication disconnect. Because you're most likely people, get people down there are already weed abating.
Yeah, I don't think we were aware of your weed abatement efforts.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So what
yeah.
can we, every time we wanna do something, should we check with you guys and ask, well in advance your calendar?
Well, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea, but let's face it, there are so many things going on
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So if your thoughts were, well, we're gonna wait, we're gonna find this open up, and you'll wait for months and months to do that. Exactly. So I think sometimes you've got to go with what you've planned to do, what you need to do. And so things are gonna get coordinated as best they can. We appreciate the feedback with regard to communication, and we're gonna be looking into how we can do better in order for you, if you're going to the website to find information more quickly. No, whether it's you or anyone else, I'm just saying, there's improvements that we can do on our end, and that's what we're gonna be working on. Obviously, as far as the weed abatement, we've got some people that are gonna be working on that. We totally get it. Yeah, if you file a complaint and it's months later before anything gets done, yeah, you're still at risk. And I think even for some of the folks here who talked about that if you do all that you can do, and there's multiple things you can do, but if your neighbor doesn't, you're still at risk, as though you didn't do anything to your own property. Yeah. So it is that, as Nick mentioned, face-to-face communication with neighbors. And I know that Jackson Oaks and Holiday Lake Estates have a really good HOA up there, and I think there's really good communication. And Nick, I've heard up there that there's a good fire plan in place. And so there's a lot of good effort underway up there, but there's obviously some additional improvements. However, we can be of assistance through the chief, the fire chief, police chief. Let us know on how we can be involved in that as well. We're going to do whatever inspections are necessary. But I think these conversations are important, and I think the challenge that the next time around we've got to fill the room. It is unfortunate that we've got this is a great conversation tonight. Was there 20, 25 people here? There should have been 125 people here. So we can do better, and I think we can get the word out. I think talking to neighbors is all a very good thing. You got a question, sir?
Just one other question regarding Cal Fire. With all the talk of cutbacks and so forth with the state of California, are we in any jeopardy of losing any resources from Cal Fire for this area?
I can answer that. No, not this fire season. We're all here, same on the state side as well as the city side. We're all here just like we were last year, so nothing in this area is plan to be cut.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. No, we appreciate it. Thank you all for being here, and I want to thank our panel and folks for coming out tonight to meet us. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. We'll be around if you guys have some additional conversation.
Sure.
These folks
Our neighbors that work here to the meeting, they'll be on the 411 where there'll be a link where they can call this. It's a really good idea. Because I think, like, our living council,
Thank you.
we're the high fire risk. We don't have an HOA, but I went ahead and put out, I think it's called Morgan Hill Neighborhood.
Okay.
I put the notice out.
Yep.
But a lot of people didn't know about it.
Okay.
So. if
Yeah,
we
no,
could
and I was
have-
just kind of looking at our website, cruising
Yeah,
around.
but if we could do something like that, that
Yeah.
would be great too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a
Especially
good
with
idea.
fire.
To include that. I like it.
Yeah, right, yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
So you didn't use
I'm gonna check on it, but if you want me to follow up with you, I can send you an email.
People, the ones that have been complaining, the ones that are out there, they're not participating, they're not learning. What they can do, what I speak at Rotary, I speak at Kiwanis, I speak at Lions Club, I speak at homeowners associations. I have a wide district that I represent, northeast of I'm everywhere. In my own town that I'm in, come in, there's what?
The newsletter,
Very frustrating. People that are, they're the voice, they should be telling me, you need to be at this, their voices. The city does what it can, by putting out those things. We do what we can. And if the people don't respond, we're all wasting our time. Well, no, I think television's always the same. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. People definitely want to stay away. They don't want to hear that. They're already, all they're doing is trying to build an alliance and make people aware. And if you need help, we need to figure out a way to get it. Those people are those that are not here. If there was a tragedy, that's what we're going to do. Anyway, I gotta get out of here. Yeah, thank you. Can I leave you for something? You good? Yeah, okay. Something's around here. I've been wanting to do somebody's not. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Is that him? Okay, but it's not one. Yeah. Yeah, so he was afraid of it. He was we used to have Monday night at Jackson.
It's the same people that go across the village torture. That's why you're red.
I'm like, I came. So anyway, time is running
out. Just emotional. That's what I use it to train. Starting something that's
Well, I heard voice, I've heard it every day.
I'd like to meet you. No, honestly, it
But if they don't do
The city needs to get more efficient because it took me 10 minutes to find this. I knew it was happening, but I didn't know time, so I went looking for it. It took me like 10 minutes, and I found another calendar. I think horses are back to first. Yeah, there's one. But there's no reason the city can't be sending notices about all you're doing is great. You're doing this, you're doing that. You're better than all the other neighbors. Why can't we do the same sort of thing? I mean, we have a county audience right now in billing for the water, right? Everybody in the city gets a bill, right? So why can't you just put a flyer in there? Because mail stuff all the time. A lot of money very city staff just started a crowd. But see, some of the people, like I said, we're the only property in downtown. You go south, you see a whole bunch of dirt piled up.
You hear what I'm saying? They're nice people.
Because we're helping out. Then why do we do this? But my point is that they will. So you guys have to we took that low. You gotta put your head against the wall with feeling and stuff. We got it out. And it's safe. So it's right downtown. All in downtown. They could get it out of there now. I'm not saying was terrible. I had a meeting with that guy in the corner. He reminded me. Oh my gosh. Was it the father or the son? You know why? You know why I can't agree.
Well, look at all that property. We asked him to move it off of our property.
And so then that's your county or city. And nobody
says that every year. I think
So that's basically
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, right.
where the
It's right on the east.
Lot 9. Okay, lot 9. No, that's this little right there.
This is my wife's stuff.
I will get that in next week.
Alright, well.
Where's that?
I told you, he's bad. They're bad.
Oh, you mean the one that has the cars on it?
Yes. So wait till you hear about lot 1.
My parents live in my fire hydrant. Okay, good.
I wanna check that.
Went up to our little town of 12,000 when I came here.
Yeah, I think
They
that
found it
that's,
this week.
oh, okay.
And this guy here wants to put a condominium complex right here. Can you give him a permit on that one?
You know, I tried this for a while. You know, well, the road that they put in, I was at the school board meeting when they said, well, let's do it. And that didn't happen for 25 years. Well, you know where the school went to. I don't. Over on Yagas
I got talked to
Road,
the
the
missus.
school got
Oh, the movie that was moved. That is Stratford School. Yeah. I'll see you
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So how's Thursday for you?
Thursday might be tough.
I know, thank you so much.
Jennifer, thank you so much, honey.
Bernie.
Thank you so
Good
much.
to see you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang around for a while. Well, I'm gonna take up my middle gym. We're going, you look it up on the Wikipedia. Funding.
So cool.
50 feet high. It's amazing. Yeah, it is.
Wow, for the first time since I've been touring.
Yes.
So I think he's working with
Hey, good. Yes, that's the fuck. What's going on?
Sure.
I know we want to go into bed.
Yeah.
Good reason.
Yeah.
And Tammy just very well. She gave me all the help I didn't know. And she was really working to try and keep us all happy, especially with financial. She was quite shocked that we did.
I think they did too.
You're a fucking liar. I can tell you the letter.
I know.
We're one of the same Morgan Hill and Cal Fire, so I apologize they didn't go out there.
Christina,
Yes,
thank you
sir.
for your hard work, dear.
Oh, you are so welcome.
It's only a 30-hour-week job, right?
Oh, you got it, yeah.
We get 30 hours a day.
If only there were that many hours in the day, right?
I know what it's like. Everybody says, well, how did you get to be so how did you successfully do the house, blah, blah, blah. I said, work my butt off. 6 o'clock in the morning till 9, 10 o'clock at
You
night.
know what? Early riser.
Yep.
Early riser. Joy comes in the morning, as I like to say.
Yeah.
Right?
How's your boy doing?
Good.
He's swinging the bat?
He is. Yeah, he just had his last game. Oh, I need to stop this.